Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the July 11th, my mother's birthday, 2025 regular monthly business meeting of the Island Transit Board of Directors. Thanks to everybody that's joining us in person and online. I'm going to do a quick roll call. Danny Julian. Here. Melanie Bacon, I know will be joining us at some point, but is not yet present. James Pimero is absent and Janet Sinclair is absent. Jill Johnson, I'm here, is here. And Craig Sear
is here.
And I see our illustrious legal counsel, Matt Hendricks, is online with us this morning.
Good morning.
And with that, we have a quorum. Good morning, Melanie. Melanie is here. Great. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? Any changes, updates, anything?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda. Any questions, comments, feedback?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. This is the time set aside for members of the public to speak to the board about subjects of concern or interest or items not already set aside for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comment may be ended or modified if the comments become disruptive or are not germane to business at hand. Input requiring lengthier comment is best submitted in writing. So I'd open it up to public comments. Anyone in the room? Anyone online? You can unmute yourself if you have a comment. Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public input and comment section and go to business item number 1. I'd like to introduce Ryan Etling. He's the executive director of our Whidbey Communal Land Trust, and he will be talking to us about the conservation easement extinguishment on the adjacent tree farm, parcel A. Floor is yours, sir.
Morning, everybody. I appreciate you inviting me here this morning. If I could just take 5 minutes and just give a little bit of background on the land trust for folks who are less familiar with what we do. You can move on to the next slide too. The mission of the Whidbey Communal Land Trust is to actively involve the community in protecting, restoring, and appreciating the important natural habitats and resource lands that support the diversity of life on these islands and the waters of Puget Sound. And next slide, please. We're a 501c3 nonprofit conservation organization. We've been around since 1984, and the main mission work that we do is to permanently protect lands and waters around Island County on Whidbey and Camano Islands. We work only with willing landowners, and we're non-regulatory, non-partisan. Our national accreditation just ensures that we follow the best practices of land trust conservation work. And you can move on to the next slide, please. The way that the model that we work under is that the community supports our work, people who appreciate our mission and the conservation work that we do. And so over the past, this is a year old, I guess, but over a 20-year period, we've brought in $12 million of unrestricted funding from our donors. And we've leveraged that with mostly government grant funds to do the bulk of the land protection work that we've done. And that now, next slide, please. At this point, we've protected close to 12,000 acres across the islands. The other aspects of our work are restoring land, enhancing the natural functions of the land, the forests, the farmlands, the coastlines that we have protected, and bring children out onto the land and people of all ages to better understand the importance of these natural places and how they benefit the community. This year, we brought 1,200 kids onto land trust properties, paid for their transportation out there with grant funding from local sources, and helping those kids better understand and appreciate these islands and the gems that we have here in Puget Sound. Next slide, please. The way that we protect land, is kind of two main ways. We own land that we protect and we manage as preserves like Trillium Community Forest, our new Keystone Preserve down on Admiralty Bay, and Barnum Point on Camano Island. We also help our partners, agencies, the Island County, state parks, and even tribal governments acquire land, so we're facilitating their acquisition of land. And then finally, the main way that we protect the bulk of the land that we do is through conservation easements, and that starts to get to the topic of today. Conservation easements are permanent legal restrictions that go on the land and follow from landowner to landowner through in perpetuity. And so Island Transit is the new owner of a conservation easement property that the Land Trust protected back in 2007. I think we can go to the next slide. In 2007, and you can just move on from here, please. In 2007, the Land Trust purchased the seed orchard property that's to the north and east of where we're sitting right now. We purchased it from Plum Creek Timber, who was done with their operations there. We followed on that purchase with the placement of a permanent conservation easement and a Navy restrictive easement on the property, and then sold it to Longview Timber Company, who continued to manage it as a seed orchard for a number of years, and then they sold it to Weyerhaeuser. In 2023, a realtor approached us and let the Land Trust know that the property was again on the market, and they often like us to be able to help explain the restrictions in the conservation easement to any potential buyers who might be looking at the property. So we talked to several folks who thought this might be a farm or you know some other opportunity, didn't fit their needs. And then former director Morrow approached me and expressed Island Transit's potential interest in purchasing this property for the expansion of Island Transit's facilities. My first, our first interaction was just, basically confirming and verifying that we understood that there was a conservation easement in place that prevented any kinds of that prevented any significant improvements, any expansion of significant structures onto the property. Once that was verified, we moved on to the fact that the only way to accommodate Island Transit's potential interest as expressed at that time would be through the amendment of a conservation easement, which is a very rare thing. It's highly frowned upon by the Land Trust Alliance and generally not best conservation practice to amend conservation easements. It can only be done when there's a significant benefit that comes out of it. And really there needs to be a significant conservation benefit that comes out of the amendment of the conservation easement. Also in this case, I consulted with our legal counsel, and we all felt like there is a significant public benefit in Island Transit's mission through the low emissions expansion and through the free public transit that is provided, that is extremely valuable to this community and appreciated, that we feel could be a justification for an amendment of the conservation easement. In this case, the amendment would involve the extinguishment of the conservation easement on one of the two parcels of the property. So right now, the entirety of the seed orchard property, the 4 acres, is under a conservation easement. That property is in two parcels, and that northwestern parcel is what we would be open to working with Island Transit to amend and extinguish the easement on that piece. Now, the Land Trust has we have policies and procedures regarding the amendment of conservation easements. And when a landowner, when a party comes to us and asks for the amendment of an easement, if it is justifiable, then all of the costs of the amendment are borne by the party who's requesting it. And so in this case, Island Transit would be needing to cover all the costs, including appraisals, for the amendment of the conservation easement. The only way that we can show so there's the public benefit that I mentioned, very important. There also needs to be a conservation benefit to amending the easement. And the only way that you could do that, under the scenario we're looking at here, is to protect another piece of property elsewhere and use the value that is coming back through the extinguishment of the easement on that parcel, and using that funding to help protect another property of similar or greater value. So we've identified that property, and we're pursuing that. And we have appraisals both for the Island Transit, the value of the amendment of the easement, and then for the value of the placement of the easement on the replacement property. The replacement property that we're looking at right now is the one immediately to the east, the Pacific Rim Institute, and that's been appraised, as has Island Transit property. The value of the replacement property is significantly greater, and what we'd be asking is Island Transit to use the value that is coming back to Island Transit from the extinguishment of the easement on that parcel to help buy the conservation easement on the replacement property. So the Island Transit seed orchard was appraised, looking at the value right now with the easement in place. Then they had to look at the hypothetical assumption that the easement was removed off that northwest parcel. And then how much value does that bring back to the parcel by freeing up taking away the restrictions on that piece? And so I think the value is $350,000, the final easement. The value of the Pacific Rim Institute conservation easement well exceeds the Island Transit $350,000, several times over. So we'd be asking to use that $350,000 to put into that piece, if that ends up being the replacement property. And then the cost of the two appraisals is also part of something that needs to be paid for by the party that's requesting the amendment. And so I think clearly Island Transit, we worked with Todd and then Meg and some intern folks. And then we worked with Craig for a while, and now I'm explaining the project again to the board. So that hopefully everybody's on the same page and we're able to move forward in unison on this if that's Island Transit's desire. Really, that's the basis for what we're proposing. And actually, it's not the land trust proposing this again. We prefer not to amend our conservation easements. We feel like this is justifiable if we're able to replace the conservation values that are lost. And so I'm open to taking any questions at this time. This was just supposed to be informative, and I can always come back and if there's any more information needed, when you all are ready to take any action.
Any questions for Ryan?
You said in the presentation that the land trust would only consider doing this not just if there's equal replacement value that's equal or greater. So I understand the replacement of the development rights portion. What I want to clarify is the evaluation of whether the future use of this property is restricted in terms of ecological benefit. So are we agreeing to only use it for recharging hydrogen buses? Are we only using it for electrification charging? Are we limited on the type of use that Island Transit can use in the extinguishment of the development rights?
In what we're proposing, we would extinguish the conservation, so we did consult with the Navy, and the Navy is amenable to making this change as well. If we would be proposing extinguishment of the easements, which completely frees up, any of Island Transit's intended uses for that northwest parcel.
So it's up to Island Transit to decide, it's just basically a regular developable piece of property with no restrictions in the transfer of development rights somewhere else.
The only restrictions that I'd say would be in place were put forth in the memorandum of understanding that was signed back in December of 2023. A fact that I missed, but I worked with Todd Morrow, former Director Morrow, and there was a memorandum of understanding that was put together that, very simple, just explain that we would be pursuing the extinguishment of the easement on the property, that the costs would be borne by Island Transit, and that there would be the restrictions now, I think, were about, maintaining some buffer around the edge to protect the neighbors' views.
Okay, but no restriction on use.
No restrictions on use, right?
The memorandum, if I may, is in the packet, and it's, I think the only thing I see there is the last line.
And then Ryan,
Yes.
now I'm curious, this is really have to do with transit, I'm curious. So you purchased the entire value of the property originally, land trust,
Correct.
then sold it to another owner minus the development rights.
Correct.
So they bought it for less than you paid for it. Then Navy came in and bought the development rights?
No, the land trust purchased the property,
Yeah,
in 2007. And then Navy funding was used to place, this happened almost simultaneously. Navy funding was used to place a restrictive easement on the
Alright,
property
so
that
you
removed the
paid
development.
just for the land value with your
Right.
money. They paid for the development rights. Now, okay, cause I thought in
And
your
then you
storytelling
sold-
that you were getting double paid there and I was gonna flip out.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We sold the property for the underlying value to, Longview Timber, that they sold it for whatever they could get, if,
But the original
it.
purchase used the easement money and your money, so that's why
Right.
you got it intact. And then you sold the underlying property, the development rights were still protected.
Correct.
Then Transit bought the land at land value without the development rights.
correct.
Now it wants to use the land, and so we need to
Buy back.
repurchase the development rights somewhere else in order to get the use on this property.
That's correct.
So we're gonna end up being a total purchaser of land value and development rights. It just is going to present on two different parcels.
Yeah,
mean,
and Island
well-
Transit will have no vested interest in that other
Right,
replacement
right,
property.
right. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, Jill, that's exactly right.
Okay. Confirmation from above.
Wow. I mean,
That was.
Any other questions from Ryan in the room or online?
Yes,
Yeah, oh,
so two things, I actually did not know about the Navy's involvement there. What was the Navy's motivation
Mhm.
in being involved in the original transaction?
Yeah, the land trust has a multi-year agreement with the Naval Air Station at Whidbey Island, to protect land where our priorities overlap. The land trust priorities, I think I've already kind of explained. The Navy's priorities being, encroachment mitigation, or basically they want to remove potential future noise complaints from the areas surrounding the Growler jet training.
Okay,
So, in places like Smith Prairie, that has a high conservation value for the remnant prairies that are out here. That's a land trust priority, well-established land trust priority area. Also, a clear Navy interest, for the reasons I've explained. Those are places where the land trust can, under the agreement that we have, can facilitate the Navy's purchase of those restrictive easements that are really just a stripped down conservation easement. They remove the development rights, but nothing else. the land trust conservation easement gets layered on top that actually protects the conservation values of the property. Together, they accomplish the land trust needs.
And also, you've talked fairly extensively about the property that we're removing the easement. And sort of in passing, you mentioned the Pacific Rim property. So could you tell us where the conservation easement is?
Want to go to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So Pacific Rim Institute is 170 acres. This is proposed and, you know, this is not finalized, so those landowners are still working on this. We're working with them. The conservation easement would cover all but the L-shaped exclusion area that includes their current facilities. The conservation easement would be protecting all of the prairie and open space and forest values at the north end there.
And
So
that,
over the 150 acres.
and that meets the obligation of the land trust to, in this rare event of extinguishing an easement, there's significant value in protecting that property.
Yeah, and you know, when possible, in this kind of situation, we would like to protect a property that is nearby and has similar conservation values. So this is really an ideal situation. This has been a long-term land trust conservation priority. And so, you know, doing the replacement property immediately next door there is a wonderful story if we can make that happen.
And the prairie there, that's probably not virgin prairie, right?
There is remnant old growth, they call it old growth prairie there.
Yeah.
And they've also done, you know, some of the biggest prairie restoration work, you know, in the region.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
But the 350,000 won't buy all the development rights on that. You're
Absolutely
gonna
not.
take that money, bank it basically until all the other funding comes together for that parcel.
Right,
If that other funding doesn't come
it's already
together.
there. We already have that.
Oh,
funding.
okay, so you're bringing us a known deal.
Yeah.
It's
We-
not
we can-
purchase, but you know that the funding's there to purchase all the development rights off that property.
And there's
Yeah.
more funding required?
Oh,
There's significantly more funding required than the Island Transit portion. So we could make this deal happen, you know, but we can only work with willing landowners and they've got some work that they need to do to get us there.
Awesome.
But they're an interested party.
I have one clarification I'd just like to make, and Meg, I need you to look at the appraisal. As I recall, when the appraisal came back, they actually brought it down to 340, so just for the purposes of this meeting, I'm
Okay.
hoping.
Yeah.
Meg can hear me and can clarify that. And I do believe that we have already paid for the cost of the appraisal through a reimbursement. We reimburse you folks, right?
I believe so, yeah.
We did.
Okay, was it 340 Meg or 350?
I think Kurt said it came down to 350. I'll look at the
Thank
I'm
you. The
looking at my
binder's on
files
my
right now.
desk. You want to take a look?
I have it. Thank you. I'll let you know once.
Sure. Thanks.
Oh, if there's any hands up. Any questions? We're just gonna check to see if there's any hands up.
Join the meeting.
It was originally 390 and was reduced to 340.
Sorry, I just got back from.
Nope, I said that wrong. It was reduced 40K
Fuzzy.
to 350.
I've used the 350 as well, but then I stood corrected, so I was thinking I need to clarify. So,
I
No.
don't see any other
250.
questions online. Last call for questions online. Melanie? Nope, okay.
Great.
Okay.
Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
We
time.
Appreciate you coming in.
Okay, we are gonna move to business item number 2, draft of the 2025-2030 transit development plan, and Brad Wendler will be presenting to us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So this item is about our annual update of our transit development plans. This also includes a report of the prior year and our financial forecast through 2030. The TDP is a state mandated annual report. The information from this report is used by the legislature in their deliberations on the state of public transportation. I would like to remind everyone, while this report does have financial elements, it is not a budget document. It is a financial forecast. It was presented to the IRTPO Technical Advisory Committee yesterday and shared with all of those members in jurisdictions and agencies that participate in the IRTPO. And its goal here is to list out activities and accomplishments from the prior year and forecast our plans for the following 6 years, as well as providing some guidance in some other areas. And one very important point for us is any project that we want to have grant funding has to be listed or included in this plan. So as we go forward for state or grant funding, it is essential that those programs be included. So some of our activities for the administrative side of the house in 2024, we did hire over 20 operators last year. We filled our executive director position with our leadership transition. We also engaged in a number of service adjustments last year. We ran very low on operators last year, and so there was some reductions in July that included the elimination of the Clinton commuter route, as well as some other adjustments throughout Whitby to reduce our demands on staff. We did also initiate the planning to remove the on-demand zones on Camano Island and convert that back into our fixed route service, which we did in January of this year. There were additional changes to Route 6 that was a board request, as well as in response to public comments to restore fixed route service to the ferry terminal in Coopville. And that has happened. So we also, in the latter part of 2024, due to the hiring of these operators in the latter part of the year, we were able to do a lot of planning for restoration of service. Some of that occurred in January of this year, and some of it occurred later in 2025. For our facilities, we did purchase the Sea Orchard next door, and we've just heard about that. We also completed the installation of electrical chargers for our 2 electric vehicles, our staff vehicles. This is one of them pictured. You'll see them out and about. We like to use them with our marketing and outreach folks quite a bit, as well as our service supervisors. For 2024's equipment, we had a number of projects that went on. I'm not going to go through them all, but it was a busy year really for the operations team on that side of the house. We had a lot of these projects were internal projects. These systems are really going to set us up for success. You know, we changed our fixed route dispatching system, our scheduling software, the Optibus software. That's really going to be useful when we go forward for our long-range transit plan, because it allows us to accurately assess the different service scenarios that and requests that come to us. We'll be able to create those schedules and then program out a simulated union bid, so we can determine the number of vehicles and operators we would need with various services that are being requested. And that allows us to make better plans for our service planning issues. Also in 2024, it was a good year for ridership. We were up a little over 11%. Our expenditures were in line with where we expected. And we did consume over 255,000 in fuel last year, gallons of fuel last year for our fixed route operations between both islands. On the paratransit side, we also saw an increase there of 13.1%. And I would like to point out to the board members the difference for fixed route and paratransit is we often say fixed route is fixed cost, because if we have more passengers on the bus, we're not deploying more vehicles to carry them. With paratransit, that's different. So when we see these increases in ridership, that often means that we're putting additional vehicles and additional operators out on the road. And so those are new costs. So that's something that changes over time. And in paratransit last year, we did consume over 50,000 gallons of fuel or gallons equivalent because we do have a mixture on our paratransit side. We have some diesel, some gas, and some propane. So this is the various fuels equivalated out to gallons. For our budget perspective in 2024, we had revenues of just a little over 27 million and expenditures came in at about 17.5. So we were in good financial shape. Our sources of revenue in general are sales tax, as well as either capital or operating grants that we can get from the state, or some of them are federal grants, but they pass through the state first. So that if you have any questions about specific projects, some of that money is delineated in there, and either Melinda or myself would be happy, or Paul, to talk about the various grant revenues that came in and what those sources are. On the capital side, we had about $400,000 in revenue, about 1.8 million in expenditures for capital projects. Oh, and I would like to say, I know that some of you may be looking at the budget or remember that we ordered vehicles last year, big fixed route buses, and those came with some large price tags for each vehicle. I'd like to point out those expenditures are not reflected here because vehicles are paid for in the year they are received. So even though they were ordered last year, they wouldn't show up in last year's capital expenditures. They'll show up in the as capital expenditure in the year they're received. So that's just something to keep in mind. For services going forward, there's a lot in the book and a lot of in the report, and there's a lot of this that coming forward is going to go through the long range transit plan. Some of this stuff is going to be fleshed out. It's going to be a fairly ambitious public outreach process for us to try to reach out to the public, find out what they need from us, what they think is working, what they think isn't, and what else they would like to see. So this report right now contains the major highlights. And if you have any questions on those, always happy to answer those either now or offline at a later point in time. Going forward for projects and facilities, again, a number of things that we've got going on here. These are the major highlights. There is a by-year breakdown in the book, or I should say in the report. Feels like a book when I was writing it. But yes, so we've got that breakdown in there. If you have any questions on any specific project or why things are assigned to a given year, please don't hesitate to ask, send us an email, give us a call. And then on the final page, we've got our financial forecast. So the financial forecast begins with a strong projected budget of 27 million in operating revenue. We have a consistent upward trend through the end of 2030. Operating expenditures assume a 7% growth rate with 2025 based on our projected actual budget or projected actuals to date through about half a year. Capital expenditures are based on Island Transit's asset management inventory and are listed by year of expenditure again. And so our total capital revenue is a combination of state. Okay. Total capital revenue is a combination of state and federal revenue. Typically, grants come in and we ask for them to cover 80% of the cost, and then there's a 20% local match. So that's where our local funds would come into the picture, is as that local match. Generally, that is our sales tax funding. And with that, that is a quick update on our transit development plan for this year. Today does start the opening of our public comment period, and at the August board meeting, we will have a public hearing for any last minute comment. We will also share any public comments that we receive and the staff responses to those comments at the August board.
Is this draft document posted on the website?
Yes, ma'am, it is. And with that, pending your questions, that's all I got.
Just one question, not that it would be firm as far as an answer, but with regard to that graph, that projected performance going forward, what's the level of uncertainty? Hitting like plus or minus 5%, 10%, 1%? I mean, obviously it's gonna be more than 1%, but I'm trying to what I'm saying, projections are only worth so much, and, I was trying to get kind of a sense of what you might estimate the uncertainty level on those, projections may be.
Was
I'll
the,
have to refer to
yeah, was it
Melinda.
the financial forecast?
Right, yes.
So actually, Paul was willing to address the graph. We had him do the graph for us, yes.
Okay, we can wait there, that'd be fine.
I think there are a number of assumptions in that graph that could change. Inflation is one of them. I think also if there's negotiations for wages, depending on how that goes, that could significantly change the expenditure levels, which are projected here to be increasing within each year. And then on the revenue side, we're projecting status quo, an increase of 3%. So, we had some uncertainty around funding this year. I mean, that could significantly change next year and beyond. So I think there is a high level of uncertainty in that forecasting.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, it's very easy to draw the line, but trying to align with the line in reality sometimes tough. Thanks.
Any other questions that I can address at this time for the board members?
We update this document every year or
Yes,
every
ma'am.
year? So like we referenced in there, planning outreach, and then we get community feedback. Then we would take that community feedback and update specific projects, or that overarching body of work is enough to do specific projects. Like, if we say we're gonna do this outreach and get community feedback, we get some and we wanna implement something. Do we have to update the plan specific to those implementation items, or does that fact that we said we were gonna do that outreach and that there might be something that comes out of it, give us enough opportunity to do what we wanna do?
I would say the latter. So it depends on the exact feedback we have, and a lot of the future years are just projections. And one of the things that's allowed in this is, if you say you're gonna buy 10 buses in 2028, but then a grant opportunity comes up this year through a stimulus package or something, you're allowed to move projects forward. So, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility that's built into this document. It's not, for us, it's not chiseled in stone. I think from the state's perspective, they want to make sure that we're reporting what's happened and that we have a reasonable plan going forward for how we want to function.
Cause I noticed that a lot of the work that was called out in like the goals and this, the work plan was much broader in statement and a little less specific. And so I didn't know if that broadness then allowed us to do projects that may not be called out specifically anywhere on this plan.
Yes, it does allow us to do that, and state staff will tells us specifically to do those sorts of things, because for IT, for instance, sometimes you don't know when a server is going to fail.
Yeah.
And so, then we have to go out and get grant funding, and that may occur in 27 or 29. And so they want you to have that flexibility to react when you need to.
But when we reference, I'm sorry to be like this person, so when we reference like preserve existing level of service, but we don't say preserve and enhance, right? We're not saying any of that. Preserve allows us to do service enhancements if we identified something within the plan that from community feedback or from the numbers that we're tracking. By referencing those things, we can still adjust programs
Yes.
without amending the plan within a specific year.
Yes, ma'am, that's right. A good example would be if commuters to the Clinton Ferry wanted us to schedule our trips a little differently on the one. We could do that. That's allowed
Under
within the
this
plan because we're good.
I thought it looked good, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
I love the new format.
Excellent.
Great.
All
Thank
right,
you, sir.
hearing nothing else?
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, business item 3, resolution number 11-25, adopting updated drug and alcohol policy. And our illustrious human resource assistant manager, Stephanie Smith, will be,
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Bright, for calling me illustrious. I appreciate that on a Friday.
I'll think of a new word for next time.
Thank you. So I am here today just to present the updates to the Island Transit Drug and Alcohol Policy. And for just a brief bit of context around why we're doing this today In February, Island Transit had its WashDOT drug and alcohol virtual site visit. That was conducted by Dahir Ibrahim, who is WashDOT's program compliance manager for drug and alcohol. During the virtual site visit that I participated in, I was our DER, which is the designated employee representative for our drug and alcohol program. I had to participate in a verbal interview, provide requested documentation, and all of that was sent to Mr. Ibrahim, and that included updates to the drug and alcohol policy. After review of all the documentation that was provided, he officially closed our virtual site visit with a no findings result, which is fantastic. That brings us to the updated policy that was included in the board packet. The last time the policy was updated, it was March 23rd of 2018. And as I mentioned, as part of the virtual site visit, I made the suggested recommended changes that came from the virtual site visit. Previously provided that to the state for their approval, which they did approve. It's in your packet. I'm happy to go through the very minor changes to it or pause if there's any questions.
Thank you for providing the red line.
Mhm.
Questions?
Is it normal to wait 8 years to update this, or how often should it be?
Great question. It should be continually reviewed, and when you look at the policy and the red line, there really wasn't any change to process or procedure. It was just some verbiage changes. It should be reviewed periodically to make sure that is part of the compliance visit that we do with WashDOT.
And if there's any changes on a federal level.
Yeah.
Similar for drug and alcohol testing, then we would then have to reflect that.
Right.
in our policy.
And legals reviewed this to make sure that.
Based on.
That I don't know for sure, Melinda. There were no rule changes.
Matt, have you reviewed this, sir?
I don't think I've seen this one.
And so Matt, there's no change in the policy other than, so maybe it would be beneficial just to call out what I would call the two minor changes. One was changing the name of substance abuse counselor to substance abuse professional because they are referred to as a SAP, not a SAC. And minor change.
Understandable.
And the other piece of it per the state's recommendation was not to list the position that is the agency's DER, but to list the person's name. Those were the changes that were put forth in the document.
Yeah,
Previous-
those are just administrative changes. That's not a problem.
Correct.
I guess the why I was asking is to make sure that there weren't any changes in state law or federal law requirements that we might have missed that legal would maybe catch. So I just want to make sure that if we adopt this, it's the most updated version that complies with all of the regulations, and we don't have any old language in there that is no longer enforceable or you know how court
Oh, sure.
interpretations
Yeah.
change and
Yeah.
different things. I want to make sure that just the policy itself is still a valid policy.
And that's a great point to bring up, Ms. Johnson, because this was reviewed by the state's WashDOT program, drug and alcohol program and compliance manager. They would have looked at that as well. And their only changes were the changes that we have put into the document.
That's when I heard that, that's what I would like to see is that the state saw it. So
Yep.
All right, Matt got outranked on that.
that,
I
But
thought
thank you for the
that,
question.
I didn't say it.
Yeah, no, thank you for the questions.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. When you guys update these policies, if you send them to us, we appreciate that.
You bet.
We need to be updated on any kind of changes to this. I know these aren't major changes.
Yeah, you bet.
We still need those updates.
So once the board approves this, we will get it sent right over to you.
Well, actually, yeah,
So in the future, during the process of
wanna see
updating,
the
draft?
Danny, you want to see it?
actually,
Okay.
in case there's any impact bargaining that we would want to engage in.
You bet. Thank you.
I thought about that when we were doing our one-on-one the other day.
May I get a motion?
Move to adopt.
Melanie?
Looking for the words, Melanie just makes it second.
So I move we adopt the updated drug and alcohol policy.
Second.
Okay, so we have
We have two motions.
We have two
I thought
motions
so.
on the floor now. She said, I move to adopt and,
Oh, I see, okay.
and then you, and then.
Okay.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Bacon and we have a second from Commissioner Johnson to authorize approval of resolution number 11-25, adopting the updated Island Transit Drug and Alcohol Policy. All in favor, say aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Stephanie. And so Stephanie, you'll send a
Yes.
clean copy. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Business item number 4, non-represented performance appraisal presentation by Mr. Terrence Ellison.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so today, we are going to talk about a non-represented evaluation system that we will be putting into effect in October. And why we're going to be doing it and how we're going to be doing it.
Yes.
This is just the information on the evaluation system itself. Any merit, or I'm sorry, any step increases or anything like that related to it will be talked about during the budget process. We need an evaluation system. 99.9% of every company in the world has an evaluation system, so that we can evaluate our employees, do succession planning, figure out how we can improve processes, all of those things. And that's why we're going to be going to an evaluation system, so that people can understand where they stand within the organization, jobs and behaviors are understood, and determinability to be able to do the job. Key benefits of the performance appraisal system: it enforces high performance and productivity year-round evaluation. So your supervisor, your manager, you're always in communication about how you're doing, how best to improve, all of those good things. It aligns individual goals with organizational objectives, promotes a culture of accountability. An employee can't be accountable if we don't evaluate them. It makes no sense for us to discipline someone for not being able to perform if we've never interceded at any point during that year to say, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. This is where you need to improve. If those steps aren't met, it's unfair to the employee, and it's unfair to the supervisors and managers not to be able to have that contact to evaluate their employees. So we're gonna implement the program by first informing the employees. We're gonna let everybody know what we're doing, what the objectives are, why we're doing it, how they're going to be evaluated. Next steps will be sitting down with the managers and supervisors and making sure that they're all trained up on what the expectations are. Because if manager A is doing things differently from manager B, all is lost. Everybody needs to be playing to the same sheet of music. And that's what Melinda and I plan on doing, sitting down with everybody, making sure everybody is doing everything the same way. And then when the evaluations come in from the supervisors and managers, they will go to HR, they will go to Melinda so that we can make sure that everything is as it should be before they reach the individual to sit down with them and go over the evaluations. If something is inflated, we'll be able to detect that and make sure that everything is done fairly. If someone is just giving everyone the same evaluation, we'll be able to detect that, send it back to the table and make sure that they're evaluating and doing their jobs properly. Next slide, please. We'll be defining clear objectives, making sure that everyone knows what the process is about, and we will try to align the evaluation system to make sure that their traits meet what Island Transit's mission goal is, which is to provide safe, accessible, convenient, and friendly public transportation. Next slide. And those traits that lead to that are professionalism, judgment, decision-making, customer service and teamwork, accountability, communication, and technical skills. So all of those things, when you're evaluating, should lead to improved performance, which are in line with Island Transit's mission statement. And how we'll score that is we'll use those traits and we'll give them a weight. Let's say professionalism is 30%, customer service 25, accountability 20, and so on. And then all of those things are weighted, everything is scored out. Again, they'll be reviewed by the executive director of human resources to make sure that everything is done fairly and that all of our supervisors and managers are in line. Next slide, please. And then once everything is calculated, there'll be a scoring guide. And based on where you fall on that scoring guide, if you fall, let's say it's 0 out of 5. So if you're below 1.5, that is unsatisfactory. And we know that we need to take measures to get you up. Even if you fall in the development and improvement needed area, we know what we need to do to get you up to speed. And so forth. And yeah, and then your outstanding performers, succession planning, increased duties, things like that that we can do to keep them here longer is what we'll be able to do. Next slide. So in conclusion, every organization needs a performance appraisal system in order to function properly. We have to be able to address shortcomings in our behaviors and performances. We have to give the managers an ability to get everybody up to speed, because how can we evaluate our managers if our managers aren't evaluating their charges? So those are some of the good things that we need to do to be able to get us up to speed.
Questions,
Any questions?
comments?
See where Melanie is.
Melanie, did you have a question? No. James Pumera?
Yes, I think your Likert or Likert scale is outstanding. I mean, the 5 categories, just as a word of caution with regard to them, and my experience with these types of scales in the Navy is that some categories are more prone to being subjective, leaning, not necessarily biased, but just less tangible. So technical skills is more quantifiable, say, for instance, than perhaps customer service. So it's essential that these categories have discrete qualities that are evaluated so that it reduces the subjectivity piece, because I know the legal thing about, you know, if you have a bunch of subjective decisions or evaluations, that's an invitation to litigation. That's all I have.
Thank you.
So much of your presentation was about the importance of performance evaluations, and 99% of companies have them. It sounds like Island Transit didn't have one.
Island Transit did have them, but they weren't consistent. So the problem is when you have, I don't know if it was because of a lot of different movement and within Island Transit, but it seemed to have dropped off the map and it wasn't consistent. We need to be consistent in what we expect of our employees. And the only way that we can do that is to have a consistent evaluation system that does not fall off the map. So every year, everyone will be evaluated.
So if I may, when I came in November, and we had a lot of recent promotions and those types of things. The only folks that I found that were being evaluated, I think maintenance had been doing some in the past, correct? Well,
Yes.
So, I got together with the city of Everett because I've been on the compensation board for 6 years, as well as their personnel. And, we adopted their performance evaluation system, and we actually started it back in December. So while we're going to an October through September system, we have been implementing this, and we started training managers back in, December. And so what we'll be doing is giving them annual training on how to effectively use this tool in performance evaluation. I think an important thing to remember here too is there's a lot of good things about performance evaluation, right? And I have a strict theory of nothing on an evaluation should ever be a surprise. You should be communicating with your employees all year long. Before anybody would ever get a rating, let's say of a 1.5 unsatisfactory, we're already on top of it because we're already working with you to get better. It should be identified as you go along. But this allows us to have a consistent appraisal for all non-represented as we go along.
Jim. So I have 3 questions, but I think you answered one already. So the frequency is a once a year evaluation.
Yes, in October.
But then my other question then is when you were doing the presentation, you were talking about nobody should know that they're not a good performer because this evaluation would start telling them. You just said that there needs to be evaluation, so there's not surprises on this. So this isn't replacing a performance improvement plan if
No,
one's
no.
needed in the interim. This doesn't protect people from necessarily being let go if there's significant performance or behavioral issues waiting for this evaluation. This is just an annual benchmark to let people know areas that they could work on enhancing, areas that they're excelling in, so that they know where they stand within the organization, and it's used as justification for future promotions.
Yes, so we've already started the process during our leadership meetings as far as management is a year-round event. So that when they get their evaluations at the end of the year, there are no surprises.
Right. And another thing, when you hire someone, this form, it has drop downs in it, so you can't see it there. But when someone's hired on, they are subject to that we have a 6-month probation. So they would get an evaluation at 30 days, 90 and 180. So their onboarding process, they get a blank one of these along with their job description so that they understand what they're being evaluated on. Then, if we were to have someone, let's say the PIP is completely separate, but it would certainly support this. If they are in a development needed category, there should already be a PIP in place. So, yeah, so this would substantiate both ends.
Then my third question, I'm trying to think how to ask it safely and politely. Is there a structure on who is evaluating who that
Yes.
Managers.
are managing that? So I guess my question is more, is there a single point of failure, a single personality that's evaluating managers, or who's evaluating like senior staff? Is it just the executive director whose evaluation we're using, or only because in my observation over the last 13 years of the organization, a lot of the preference towards some employees over others have been very focused at the top of the organization.
Right.
And if there's a single evaluator that's determining those promotions,
Sure.
that doesn't address our fundamental problem. I mean, I'm not
Sure.
speaking to you and your
No, no,
narrative, but that seems to have been where we tend to,
Right.
leave the road a little.
So if you look at the org chart.
Yeah.
Where that is in the TDP, so the managers in charge of each department, for example, will and maintenance, would be responsible to be rating all of those that are reporting to him. Once he does that, before it's given to the employee, it goes to HR and it goes to me to review.
Right.
So who do I evaluate? I evaluate all the managers who report to me directly.
Right.
So my answer.
This, yes, but you're also highlighting my fundamental concern, which is if a personality that is evaluating the managers is prone to favoritism, preference, I don't like you.
Yeah.
There's, other than the board evaluating the executive director,
Right.
there isn't a check and balance in that evaluation of those managers. And that is where I've seen organizationally, we've had some problems
Right.
where we're not able to really be objective in those evaluations because there's just a single individual, right? Like you're able to monitor the manager's evaluations of their direct reports.
And he would be as well.
Because you're able to look at a series of evaluations, right? There's more than one employee under them. And so you're able to say, well, look, this seems a little out of whack for what they're saying about these other employees. But if it's you, who's evaluating your evaluations to determine if they're not arbitrary?
Well, I think there's a balance, if you will, because we're both signing off on them. He's gonna call me on it, sees me favoring somebody.
What if you're favoring him?
Well, I think.
No, that's a totally valid.
I mean, that.
Based on what we experienced
Well,
here.
I mean,
Can I
we've
speak
got,
to that?
sure,
Unfortunately, all CEOs evaluate their charges, their direct reports. All executive directors historically evaluate their direct reports. So there's really no historical way to look at it where it is done differently.
I mean, I'm in an environment where we do that too,
Yeah.
right? But there's three of us. So there are oftentimes a department head that falls out of favor with one of us for a variety of reasons. And I will decide, well, they're not performing well. Typically it's me. This will not be surprise anybody. Typically they fall out of favor with me. And I'm like, they're out, right? I'm done. And I have other colleagues who introduce balance and perspective and other insights to say, I appreciate that you think this person's not performing, but you haven't looked at the 28 things they did well. You looked at the one thing that made you mad. Fair, right?
Yes.
So what I want to make sure as we're putting this structure for, because I think it's very good, and I think evaluations are very important. But I'm also worried that there needs to be a broader check and balance in this government agency, not a private sector company, in this government agency that anybody's personal views, even yours, are tempered with other perspectives in some way, right? Because again, you're the one that, if, says whether or not she's doing a good job in terms of her evaluations, she's also evaluating you. The fastest way for someone to get a poor evaluation is to tell their boss, I don't think you're doing a very fair job of doing this. You know what I'm gonna do if I'm her? Again, I'm a weak link in all personality scenarios. What I'm gonna do is file that away. And I'm gonna think, well, who is he to think that his judgment's better than my judgment? Now your performance review comes out,
Well,
right? She's the only one evaluating.
I get,
No, and so I'm not trying to be difficult about your plan. I'm trying to just point out a weakness early that in the executive evaluation of senior management, I want to make sure there's enough checks and balances in place to make sure that it's not a single personality that could be ostracizing a good employee, promoting a favored employee. I like the ones that laugh at my jokes the most, right? I'm susceptible to the suck up. So does that employee get a higher ranking because I like them? And if I'm the only evaluator and nobody's going through and saying, hey, wait a second, you really gave this person excellent, but you're giving everybody else these kind of scores. Who's evaluating the justification for that?
well, I would like to think that our relationship is more professional than that.
I appreciate that.
Because Melinda and I have disagreed on several things since I've been here. And she has listened to me on a lot of.
True. Yes.
So, I would like to think that we put this in place together, knowing that the check and balance is there.
I hear you,
Yeah.
and I think that's true about you, and I think that's true about Melinda. And I think it's been true about different executive directors of this agency over the years. And I think it's been historically untrue about other executive directors of this agency over the years. And so what I'd like us to think about, I'm not opposed to adopting this or whatever we're doing, but what I would like to see us think about is a structure that gets developed where maybe at the senior level, there is some type of multifaceted evaluation so that there's not a single personality that's reviewing these things. I don't care if it's the board chair. I don't know that a board member would know well enough. That's why I'm hesitant to suggest the board. Because we're not here on the day-to-day, but your assumption is absolutely correct. In a professional environment, this is not an issue. I'm not saying this is not a professional environment. I am saying that we have had personalities that have used their authorities and not, I mean, I can think of multiple executive directors, not a singular one, who have used their authorities to provide preference to some employees over another, promotions to some employees over the other, performance reviews that have elevated some salaries higher than others. And because we don't have a structure where the board reviews all of that, it literally comes down to a personality. And even for you, it may not always be Melinda. And if you fell out of favor with someone because you have a professional relationship that's focused on this organization and there's a mutual understanding of that relationship, that's safe. But if this personality changes, that may not be safe for you. And somebody needs to be able to say in that evaluation process, hey, wait a minute, you don't get to evaluate the person lower just because they're not your preferred person, right? I'm just trying to guard against human nature and personalities maybe like mine, right? Where, I mean, I don't think I'm unprofessional, but I think I have extreme biases. And when you get sideways with me, it's hard for me to come back.
Well,
If I was your executive director, I would be a risk probably in a scenario like this where I'm the sole evaluator. And so, and you can't tell that in an interview. People liked me. That's how I got elected. They don't know. So, you know, right? So I just want to really point out the fact that that's what I'm kind of nervous about, just in the historic nature of the organization. I don't need to beat the point to death. I just want to call it out.
I just know that, I've been doing evaluations, for a long time in HR. And, you approach it with professionalism, you train up your managers, and things have always gone well, because I've always been a guardrail. And I think I have a supportive guardrail, Melinda. So
I have a couple of questions before you stand down. A couple of the things you've already addressed, similar questions to what Commissioner Johnson had. So one of the things that you mentioned, and let me just say this, is that I feel, and this is just Jenny Bright talking, that from a accountability and discernment perspective, I think that these two have created a very strong foundation to be able to roll this out and hold people accountable to it. I do think that human nature is human nature. And so we all have to hold ourselves in check. I don't know what that looks like, but I do agree with what Commissioner Johnson is saying, that we all mutually have to hold ourselves accountable in these kinds of processes. You mentioned this was going to be rolled out. What does that look like?
it looks like we
Is it an all hands on deck?
no, we get the communication out.
Okay.
This is what we're going to make sure that, change is difficult for some people. So when you're saying that this is the modern day, Island Transit and how we're gonna move forward, this is the expectation. We get that communication out to everyone. We're not asking, we're telling, this is what we're doing. And then we get the managers on board by getting them trained up. Constantly, we'll have it in leadership meetings, we have side-offs where we're just going over it to make sure that we're all on the same page and what the expectations are.
You said it, we've had a lot of change recently. I'm a stick or a carrot kind of person. Most people see those kinds of communications where this is what's happening, this is what's changing, this is the new process as a stick, as opposed to this is a tool for us to be able to reinforce, you know, challenges, opportunities, and praise as it pertains to your work performance. And so that would just be my caution, that what I would throw out is you're rolling this out, that it looks like a positive and instead of something punitive, which is what people can feel
Well,
about a process like
That all
that.
comes in the communication.
And
piece.
it truly has been rolled out. It was
Oh,
rolled
okay.
out back in December, and so we've got a management team back there of new promotions that have already been trained up. We've already employed the process. The part that we're changing is to put the timing in place so that everyone knows when an annual evaluation is going to happen.
Is there a self-evaluation that the employees are doing at all? I know I asked you this question and I cannot remember.
It's under consideration.
Okay, cause I also think that helps to mitigate some of the issues that people feel when they're getting a performance evaluation. And then my last question is, how are the managers managing the information that comes in throughout the year? Because one of the things that I have found personally about these kinds of evaluation processes, 10 people report to me, I've got to get all this stuff done and then implemented for October, and I'm trying to remember all the things that have happened.
And
So what is that?
That is a
look
part
like?
of the training. When we do our manager training, I'm talking about everything needs to be documented, whether you praise them, whether you discipline them, and you start that process so that you don't have to think about it at the end of the year. You can avoid the halo effect, the devil effect, where, you know, you're just holding people accountable for the things they've done in the last 2 months.
I also ask for people, and I tell my employees, you know, keep track of the things you've accomplished over the last year. All of the things you've achieved and accomplished, and then typically before evaluation time, telling you all now that before evaluation time, right? I want to see a list of those, because then it helps to jog my memory about those things.
And I also want to say that if evaluations are due in October, I'm already doing my last bit of training around June or July and telling them to get started. So that if you have a department of 20 people, you're not waiting till the last minute to do your evaluations. So it starts early.
Thanks, Terrence. You good? Okay, last question.
Oh,
Sorry, y'all.
with regard to Commissioner Johnson, you are reflective, analytical, and feisty. So you earn my respect because we need that analytical piece. So thank you for that. With regard to the subject about evaluating the executive director, and I'm going to not use names, but in a previous job, we had in a different organization, we had an executive director who flat out had the board president of that organization had it out to sink the executive director. And he assigned me to get evaluations about the executive director's performance to bring it before the board, because we were dealing with the same issue where you had the executive director who was doing all the evaluations. So I went to all these people and I was shocked because all the evaluations of these different affected people at different sites, and it was stellar and confirmed what there's that confirmation bias. But I knew our executive director was outstanding. I couldn't understand why this particular board chair had it out to sink the executive director. So so that piece about the personalities and the bias, it can be very very important, and trying to cut that out. I'm just saying to you, it's very emotional event for me to try to go through all this and they were trying to sync up what I count practically a perfect executive director.
Okay, we're gonna move to, thank you, Terrence. We're gonna move to business item number 5 and try to make up a little bit of time, which is the request to change the date of the August meeting. And I will pass that to Melissa.
Okay, very good. Yes, we are looking to change. We have 3 commissioners that will be out of the area at a regularly scheduled August meeting. So we are requesting to move that meeting to Friday, August 8th at the same time, 9:30 to 11.
I move to change the date of August first, 2025 regular session meeting to August 8th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to change the meeting date for the August board meeting to the eighth at 9:30 a.m. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to business item number 6, which is the authorization to purchase 6 35-foot hybrid electric replacement buses awarded through the FY 25-27 Consolidation Grant Program. The application, just as a reminder, was approved by the board at the September 6, 2024 board meeting and is in accordance with the 2024-2029 Transit Development Plan.
So, yes, as of our last board meeting on June 6th, we received notice from WashDOT that we were in fact awarded for these 6 vehicles, which was very exciting. So we are asking today to have you approve that. We have put everything into place. We currently have 2 buses on order, hybrid electrics that we approved here, with Gillig. And to get under the same pricing, I was able to get a hold of someone at Gillig, get us the same pricing as we had on the other 2. Although there is a caveat of tariffs that will come up. But the expediency into which they were able to get us the pricing so that we could cut a PO by the 1st of July, which our grant goes from July 1, 2025 to 27. Takes us 18 months to get the vehicle. They really push things through for us. So we're here today to ask for authorization to cut that. Yes.
So before Commissioner Johnson asks the question, how much money are we spending? How much money are we spending here?
Okay, so the total project cost is 7.8 million. The grant amount, it's an 80-20 split. So the grant amount is 6,259,899. And our 20% match, which is from local funds, is 1,564,976.
And they're hybrid electric.
Hybrid, yes, 35 footers. Other questions?
Melanie, any questions? Comments, feedback?
We can charge these buses. Or, I wanna make.
We have the charging infrastructure.
We have the infrastructure
Yes,
for
do
these
you want to
buses.
explain the hybrid electric
We already,
process?
we already have 3 hybrid electrics in service right now.
Yeah.
The hybrid electric uses a diesel motor to charge the generator on board, which then drives all that power into the batteries, and the batteries is what drives it.
Sorry, so they're not, they're not a
plug-in,
plug-in, so we're not gonna be short, that's what I was worried
Yeah,
about, is
no,
I'm gonna
we
say
don't
yes
need
to
no
these
more
buses, and then we can't charge them.
No infrastructure involved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah, they'll find.
I knew you could explain it.
Proud, I move to authorize the purchase of 6 35-foot hybrid electric replacement buses awarded through the FY 25-27 consolidated grant for.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the purchase of the 6 35-foot electric hybrid replacement buses. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Very exciting.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Okay, I will pass it back to Melinda for executive director report.
Okay, executive director report was sent out to the folks yesterday afternoon. I will be brief in our time constraint here, and I'm just gonna outline and give an update on the project section. I'm very excited. We finally, and I swear it's finally on Terry's Corner. The lease is ready for signature. Matt has it. He's emailed me a wet signature. Soon as I get it, I will put my signature on it. WashDOT will put theirs. We have a finalized agreement and execution so that we can begin our next steps with Terry's Corner, which has already had the design done, correct, Pete?
Yes.
Okay. Tree farm, I won't say a lot about that. We saw Ryan Elting's presentation today. And we will be bringing that back to the board in August for a vote on the extinguishment process. Long-range plan, we are working with civic initiatives. We are preparing for a RFQ, and my apologies, it says RFP in my notes here. A request for qualifications. They are helping us with finalize the scope of work. We have a draft contract with legal with Matt for review, and we hope to have the RFQ issued within the next couple of weeks. So that's exciting part of our process. The automatic passenger counters that we talked about in our last board meeting. We are also working with civic initiatives to draft a scope of work and put an RFP out there to see what kind of bids we get back as we go through our 2026 budget process. So we are pushing that along so that we can have that as part of the process. One of the more important and exciting ones for me, paratransit and on-demand focus group. Operations is tracking on-time performance of paratransit and on-demand. Many of you know those two services are currently a mix. While we are close to compliance, we are falling short. And I've been having Dee, who is our paratransit specialist, has been giving me weekly updates on-time performance for the last several months. So we formed this focus group to examine the nuances of mixing on-demand and paratransit. The group includes our maintenance folks for the efficiency of fleet utilization, outreach to survey active users, and using a 1-month experiment of splitting out the two services to see if our on-time performance is reached that way. Expansive outreach will be done during our long-range planning process to determine the best path forward. Should we look at splitting that out or perhaps not having on demand, it would be a good 6-month outreach process and would likely be part of a 2026 service change. Questions?
When you talk about these groups, I mean, it brings up a broader question that I'd like us to consider. We don't have advisory groups for this organization, this public organization, and I appreciate that we send out surveys to users of the system. But I actually think that, especially as it relates to paratransit, that an advisory group might serve this organization
Absolutely.
well.
Yes.
So that it's not just like outreach here and there, but that we're having continual feedbacks from users of the system, from family members of users of the system. I think medical facilities that have people in their waiting rooms for 45 minutes who are waiting for the bus to come. I mean, I think that in general, an advisory structure would serve this organization well in basic routes as well as paratransits, and I'd like us to start thinking about that. We don't have to do it today, but
But we have.
Okay, great.
No, I'm excited about that, and I agree with you. Selena and I just attended Island Senior Resources, who is forming just such groups for the purpose of where are gaps in service. But they've introduced us to the representative on Camano Island for their community center, who reaches these groups so that we can then develop that. So Selena is working.
But not everybody who uses paratransit's old.
No, absolutely.
And so I want to.
She has put us in contact with.
I want to make sure we have our own group so that the user groups reflect who our community is. Okay, I didn't want to just piggyback on there.
Yeah, and I
Can
can
you-
also.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, can you share some of the folks that were there at the table, because you knew so many of them?
Oh, yeah, the names are escaping me right now, but we had individuals, so at the focus group that they created. Are not intended to just be senior outreach, they're also for the help house, we had veterans. We had folks who were like lower income subsidy folks. We had another individual there from the medical, it was for it's a DSHS group. So it was a variety of individuals from different groups. And so it was kind of nice And I hear what you're saying, and I know that you're gonna say, well, that's not intended, what I want is I wanna have a focus group that has individuals from all these different groups, and we did talk about that. What they've done is they've put us into contact with individuals that would be best to serve on a Island Transit group that would give us the feedback that we need from all these different organizations.
So the group that Tony did the tour to.
Yeah.
The folks from People
People
First.
First.
Would be a great
Yeah.
resource because every single one of them is a spirit.
And there was someone there from the group, so it was very, very broadly based.
Jill, the other thing that I had asked Melinda as they're, doing this work is to also understand better how the insertion of the O'Connell lane, the automated pickups that go in between these two different, it's, we already have on-demand and paratransit that are combined in these rides. We also have a O'Connell lane that if it sees an opening, it goes, oh, pick this person up here, which is also creating some issues. So I know that you guys have been kind of looking at it from all directions since you're evaluating this.
But to your point, we will also add that into the long range process to form an advisory group and they can process to get this individuals on board. I think that's an excellent idea.
I will hand it over to Terrence. Oh, sorry, pardon me.
In your report here, it says that we towed 3 buses. I'm wondering if did we actually deploy the new tow vehicle? Towing those buses?
We have not deployed the new tow truck because they're still going through
Train.
training. Last month, all of the mechanics became INSA certified, which is 40% of all towing companies. That INSA training only covers 40% of America, but we've had all of ours done. This month, they went out and for 4 hours out on the OLO. And they put what the training they've got, they put that to use with our buses and testing the training over there. So,
Okay.
we're going to do that scenario. Every time that we get a new group of drivers and then they send them to LOF, we will be at that point taking a 4-hour block and sending guys over there to train more.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but as of yet, no, we have not deployed the truck.
Okay. So I'm learning, I did not know actually that Island Transit actually uses OLF for anything, and I don't need to know about that now, but it'd be interesting to learn something about that. Also, there's a rather eye-popping number here in the ridership report for May on Camino. Month over month, we saw 30.5%, not month over month, is that right? Actually, that's year over year, I believe, from May 24 to May 25. A 30.5% increase in ridership. I think I know the reason that's the case, but what is the reason?
It's because we've converted the on-demand zone back to fixed route. So the fixed route numbers over there are picking up.
And so the on-demand numbers went away for obvious reasons. We eliminated it, but is that a true increase of 30%? Like those on-demand?
It's not what I would say is a true increase. So also on Camino, if we look at paratransit because it's commingled. So there was growth. Camino from last year on paratransit side went down by about 45 rides or so. But on the fixed route side, we went up about 1,600 rides. So the fixed route service is much more popular with our population over there. And so, I think it's safe to say those that were using paratransit probably definitely moved over. I mean, if you're seeing only a loss of 50 rides on the paratransit side, but a pickup of 1,600 on the fixed route, that was a positive move on our part.
Right. And so I just want to point out to the board that the recommendation from staff was, they listened to Camino. Camino clearly said, we want to go back to a fixed route. And these numbers prove that that was the right decision. So, yeah, good job. And finally, let's see, the Shedkey vehicles that are mentioned here, we got 2 of 9. What are they being used for? I can't remember.
Those are the ones that are fixed, they're flex buses, they could either be fixed route or para.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Okay, Terrence?
Paul, I'll be really quick, be ready. All right, this is this is just the monthly report for staffing. So we're currently at 70 out of 77 operators combined for Camino and Whitby. We left in in May at 66. We had 5 new hires and 1 exit. Next slide, please.
Glory be.
I'm sorry.
Glory be.
So yeah, we have 5 new hires, 1 exit. So total operators are 70 out of 77. And last slide.
When was the last time we were at 70 operators?
That I don't know.
And it's
Nobody back here remembers that.
Yeah, I think it's been up very long.
And the exit was mutual. So that individual had a couple of issues. So it was mutually agreed upon that they left. We currently had 6 people and to bring on this cycle. We're deciding to bring on 4. So if we hire those 4 individuals, we'll be 74 out of 77. So we're looking pretty good. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. And turn it back over to Paul for our financial controllers monthly report.
I'll be reporting on May on this finance report. It was reviewed by our finance committee on June 30th. The first slide, we're showing cash sources. Our sales tax was up by 85,000, 6%. In May, you can see also some significant contract revenue, about 1.2 million. Next slide, please. Sales tax versus actual versus budget. We were about 3.12% higher, $45,000 higher, and that's a positive trend. You can see at a green line that we have this positive trend going right now. However, for the year, we're about 1.21 behind what our annual goal was, our budget goal. But we are seeing improvement. Next slide, please. Operating grant revenue, as I mentioned, received a double dose of revenue for 2 months across 4 different grants. We also received fuel tax refunds, about 20,000, and another licensing refund, about $3,000. Next slide, please. When we look at investment interest and rates, ICT IP surprisingly is rising relative to LGIP, which is flat, and 2-year treasuries kind of flattened off for the last 2 months. So it's a positive trend. We had about 10% increase, but almost 17,000 from the previous month, $68 million invested. And you can see ICTIP was up about 6%, 18 basis points. So that's a good thing for us. Next slide, please. Cash uses. I'll just cut to on an accrual basis. We were our expenses of about 1.1 million. It was down about 51,000 or almost 5% from the previous month. When we reviewed it, we saw that there was 1 less salary payout, and just the difference was less hourly hours worked in May. Our AP or non-payroll was up about a little over 200,000, 6%. And those are just normal aberrations. Some of the larger purchases we made in that month, 74,000 for fuel and 21,000 for medical deductible payments. And I should emphasize there were no late payment fees in May.
Can you say that again, please? Can you say that again? Because I don't think they've told you.
Good job.
I like it.
Me too.
Next slide, please. Process improvement. May capital payments, security cameras, about a little over 50,000, Camino security gate, almost 50,000 in a small, monthly payment for computer tablets. And I should say that those are just part of the total cost of those projects. Cash reserves, you can see a total 71.7 million, and it's just main cash increase about 1.5 million. Most of that was the grant, 1.2 million of the grant that came in. Next slide, please. You can see it graphically. We're still on that steady increase, and we do see month to month, depending on how grant revenues come in, an increase or a decrease from the previous month. Next slide, please. Budget versus actual, our target 41.67%. With fares and sales tax, we're pretty close to that figure. Fares meaning Vanderbilt fares. State operating and federal operating grants are about a 2-month lag in monies that we received, so we're pretty much on target there. And interest has exceeded what we projected, as interest rates have stayed higher than we expected. Next slide, please. Budget versus actual expense, same target, and with wages and benefits, we're pretty close to on target, you know, knowing that we haven't hired everyone we've budgeted in every department. And we were ahead, of course, on prepaid and subscriptions and insurance, that sort of thing. But below our target in a lot of other areas, supplies that we normally purchase. Next slide, please. That's it. So, any questions?
Thank you so much. I think you guys worked really hard to put a process in place to overcome some of the challenges with the late fees, and so I appreciate that that's been put into practice and that it's working.
Yeah, and I think it's a relief to our team because, you know, there isn't, because we're like turning over checks quicker, there isn't as much pressure on one particular rise. And so it's actually kind of both good for the vendors and good for us.
They went from monthly to weekly.
Oh.
What's the funding, this is unrelated, but you're up here. What's the funding source we're using for the development right purchase? Is it just the general fund or a grant fund?
Well, it wouldn't be a grant related, so it would be just, coming out.
The general. Okay.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so quiet.
So
Yes.
it's okay. So my question, Paul, is, or comment, and then the question is that I think that the board, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I suspect I reflect the opinions of the board, are going to want to be a lot more informed and involved in the budget for 2026 than we were in the budget in 2025. And I was just wondering when we'll start those budget conversations.
Well, the basic data for the budget, we've been assembling through, getting information from the managers to assemble the TDP. That was our first step. But our budget process with the board, finance committee and board probably will begin really in September. We're going to take August and reevaluate the numbers that we received and put together a formal budget that we'll discuss the finance committee, and then it'll be discussed with the board. So I would say September is really the first month that we'll present that to the board.
Thank you.
When does the long range plan process go?
Did you have another question, Melanie?
No,
or
that was my main focus.
We hope to have the RFP, Matt's reviewing the contract right now. So we hope to have it on the street in the next couple of weeks. And then, we would award after a period, it's gotta be out on the street for a month, then we'll award. Then the process takes about a year for a full long range plan.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other business comments?
I will make one comment. In the last month, the agency rolled out the Passio app, which allows riders to track the precise location of the bus that they're expecting to catch in the morning or the evening. And let me tell you, that is a good thing. And of course, with rollouts, you discover little anomalies, and I've been in communication with operations director and the executive director. And it's just interesting to learn about the little changes that, you know, can be made, actually switching antennas on buses that really improve coverage, I believe, with one issue that I identified. And but I know that there's a lot of people really happy to see that, and it provides comfort. You know, we know where the bus is or where it's not. And that has been a good thing over the last month.
Anyone else? Oh, James, go ahead.
And just with regard to budgeting, my experience has been that selective use of zero-based budgeting on certain categories is kind of like a hybrid, and was quite effective in increasing efficiency. But it's very labor intensive, and it's never, I'm not stating that it would be good for everything, but do we ever do any components of zero-based budgeting in our process?
I do, I think our budget process, does have elements. We send out to our managers, a template. And they look at, previous actuals and budgets. And it's really up to them to determine what amount is necessary. And then that, of course, that's evaluated, by our executive director and reviewed by myself and others. And so, we're not saying that you need to start with a certain dollar amount, that you have to craft your own expenses each year. That the managers will look to the previous data to try and remember maybe some of the things that they had purchased that, and make sure they include that next year. And they might even use those dollar values as a reference.
I see.
But it's up to them to determine what their future needs are and to put that down into the template that we use.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, anything before we wrap? I'm good, thanks. Very good. Well, thanks to everybody for joining us in person and online, and we will adjourn. Great. Our next meeting is August 11th, right?
August 8th.
Eighth.
Eight.
Eighth.
Eight.
Eighth. Eighth.